Hello. Oh my gosh. Hang on. I've got to put my headphones in here and just get all situated. So I was going in, to get my coffee. I'm really pissed they didn't have Rebel. It's fine.
It's fine.
And the woman they look like this.
Yeah.
It's called Cafe Agave Spiked Cold Brew Cafe Mocha. It actually has quite a 12.5 ABV for this teeny tiny can.
Holy buckets. These are only 5.
Yeah. So I go in and the woman is super, super friendly and very helpful. Okay. But she goes, we have a guy that comes in every day and picks this up and puts it in his coffee. There's 4 of these in a thing. Hang on, what's the ounces that it is? 187 milliliters, 12.5% ABV.
And he puts it in his coffee.
Yeah, and she said he comes in every day and picks up a 4-pack. Dude.
I mean,
there might be a 12-step program in his future.
There might be. I mean, I could easily drink 4 of those in a drinking session, but I'm not going to put them in my coffee all day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We're going to try it out. Okay. What are you drinking?
I've got the mocha.
Why don't you just give me a paper cut and pour some salt in the wound?
This is the one flavor I haven't tried yet.
I think that's the one that I had, and it's super good. I almost legit thought about coming to your house just to get a Rebel coffee.
You could have.
Oof, this is potent.
Yeah.
It's good, but oof, good thing I don't work tomorrow.
Oh yeah, that's good. It just
so
tastes
good.
like chocolate milk.
Yeah, but happiness in it.
I mean, yeah, it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, I do not like this.
You don't?
It's too alcohol-y. Like, I like Rebel because it doesn't taste overwhelmingly boozy.
It really doesn't.
Like, this is booze with coffee, and that's coffee with booze.
Yeah. Yeah, it really doesn't taste like booze to me. It just tastes like, the mocha latte just tastes like chocolate milk to me.
And it honestly gave me a little bit of a buzz. So, I mean, I'll probably get shit-faced with 12.5 ABV.
Maybe drink some water in between. Since I'm going first.
Yeah, I do have a thing of water down here.
Okay, good.
I'll be like, hey, this is my case.
I don't remember it. Really.
I don't remember.
That's okay. We can do yours tomorrow if we have to.
You're so pretty. Where's my crown?
Oh my gosh, we should wear tiaras sometime.
We should.
Okay. All right. Are we ready to get started?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here we go. This is episode 7. Record date, February 24th. It will air March 4th. I think we'll just get started.
Okie dokie.
Welcome to the Activity Continues podcast, where a couple of dorks, Amy, that's me, and Megan.
What's up, everybody? That's me.
We discuss episodes of the Travel Channel's TV show, The Dead Files.
So our last episode was a little bit longer than usual, and that's because we did a couple of things differently. One major thing is that we dug into the true crime aspect by doing a little research on the side about a crime that happened in relation to the story.
Also, we did some in-the-moment digging about following up on the people in the episode of the show. Megan looked into the tattoo parlor, for instance, that was being investigated. We like doing that. So the plan now is for us to do all that research ahead of time as much as we can. And then As for the follow-ups, they'll be in the regular episode.
But the true crime investigation will be a separate bonus episode that we will release on Patreon. So if you're interested in that aspect, come over and join our Patreon. There probably won't be a bonus episode each week because not all of the stories that we do involve a true crime, but we will be coming up with other extras to give patrons. If you have any ideas, please shoot them our way.
Ooh. And speaking of Patreon, we would love to welcome our very first member to the Patreon family, and it's, drum roll, Melissa. You know, the fabulously talented friend who wrote our gorgeous theme song. Welcome and thank you, Melissa. And listeners, if you haven't already listened to Melissa's podcast, do yourself a favor and check them out. A link to her website will be in the show notes.
Every time I hear our intro, I love it so much. It's just, and the first time I heard it, literal goosebumps.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
She's
I loved
talented.
it. Oh, she is so amazing.
I will say one thing I'm not super keen about this Rebel stuff is that it has like a paper, like a plasticky paper.
Oh,
what am I trying to say? Like a wrapper on it. And the seam is right here, right where you drink. And so I keep feeling that on my lip. I should just I don't have a glass in here otherwise. Otherwise, I would just pour it in a glass. But okay, so this is episode 12. I'm sorry. This is.
How many of those have you had?
This much. My episode is season 12, episode 12. It originally aired on April 16th, 2020. So not too terribly long ago. This takes place in, I'm sorry. And the episode title is The Craving. And I'm actually not sure why, because I didn't really make a connection. Maybe somebody else will.
Maybe.
It is located in Tucson, Arizona. The clients are Nick. He's a retired cop, and he says they've lived there for about 2.5 years. His wife is Desiree, and her aunt owned the property for 35 years before they owned it.
Oh, okay. So it's been it's not a new property to them. They're just new to living on it.
Yes. Okay. And they have 4 children. Their daughter, Natalie, is 17. They have a son, Brennan, who's 15. Another daughter, Trinity, who's 13. And Connor, who is 9. So not nearly as many kids as
I was just going to say it's
time.
No soccer team.
Come on, people, step it up. So the family in general has experienced objects moving, shadow people, apparitions, physical attacks, and mimicking voices.
I hate the mimicking voices.
Yeah,
that scares me so much.
That is one of the things that I had in our old house.
Yeah, you did.
I would hear somebody saying, Amy.
Yep.
In my ear. I couldn't tell if they were far away and yelling or if they were right there and whispering. But this wasn't really a mimic thing because they didn't sound like anybody I knew.
Right.
But it would be right there in my ear and it would wake me up or I'd be half asleep and I would hear it. And I'm like, what? And when I told my husband about it, of course, he first thought I was crazy. And then a little while later, he heard it.
Yeah.
But what he heard was it was mimicking me. So he thought it was me. And I was sleeping in a guest room because he was snoring. And so I was in the guest room just down the hall and he heard me calling to him. And so he got up and went into the guest room and I'm fast asleep.
I hate this. I hate it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Nope.
It was scary. But at least I was validated.
Yeah.
I'm like, see, it's not
I
just
wonder, do you think that was Kid? Or do you think it was another, yeah.
I don't know.
Because was he a trickster or not so much?
I don't know. I think he kind of was.
I mean, he was a bootlegger, so he had to have been a little bit of a looking for trouble.
I think he was. Yeah. I mean, I think he was. I don't know if he was like a funny guy necessarily, but
But I mean, like, would he have been like a shitster? Like, doing something? I feel like he would have been if he's a
I
bootlegger.
I feel like he would have been. It's
So
hard
I
to
don't
say.
know.
Those
It
of you who
is.
don't know who we're talking about a guy named Kid Can. That was his gangster name. His real name is Isidore Blumenfield, and he's a Minnesota gangster. He was part of the Jewish mafia in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. My other podcast, Volstead Land, is season 1 is all about him and his cronies and all that. So just filling that in. Not necessarily
It
a
all
plug, but just
no,
let you know
it all
that's what we're
circles
talking
back.
about.
I
Yeah.
I wonder, it would be really interesting to have had like a medium walk through your house, that
Well,
old house.
it'd be great. I wish I still lived there. I would call the
Yeah, me
Dead
too.
Files, help me Dead Files, and
Yeah.
have them come over. But yeah, one thing I should mention is that the reason that I started that podcast is that our friend Melissa, songwriter, patron extraordinaire, she is sensitive, and I don't know if she doesn't call herself a medium or anything, but she sees things that other people don't. And
Oh,
she met Kid Can in our house one time
I can't
as we were
imagine.
getting ready to sell it.
We should
So
have her on the show and
we should.
interview her.
She's told that story. She told it on Volstead Land, and then I think she also told it on her podcast. So she's told the story a few times. I could link to the episode of Volstead Land where
Yeah, you
where
should.
she told that story. So
You
yeah,
should.
I'll do
She's
that.
the best. She's the
she
best.
is.
I like her a lot.
Yeah, she's cool. And then
She's
I
part
also
of
had,
she's part of our potato. I forget what the name is.
That's
it's a
right.
potato
Yeah,
brunch group on Facebook.
a few years ago now,
Quite a few.
we realized that a bunch of us, me and Megan, and then a bunch of Melissa's friends too, are all interested in paranormal stuff.
Mhm.
And so we decided we should all get together and talk and discuss our paranormal things. And we had brunch.
Yeah.
And I made this potato casserole thing or something. So we ended up calling ourselves
the potato casserole
ghost or something like that.
Like potato
Ghosty
casserole
Potato
brunch
Society
group or
or
something.
I don't know.
And I think it was at the house you're in right now.
It was at this
I
house,
think it was really shortly after you moved in.
I think it was. So it'd have been like 2017. God, that's a long time ago.
That's so 5 or so.
Oh my God. It's a long time ago.
Anyway, I've gotten us off topic enough. I'll be quiet now.
Let's cycle back. Okay. So mimicking voices. Nick, the father, is most concerned about Connor. That's the 9-year-old. He thinks that he's possibly possessed.
That's a bold statement to throw the P word around.
Right. I know. Because, I remember Amy saying it's extremely rare for there to be a potential possession.
That's, yeah.
And I know they've done a million episodes, but it's come up quite a bit, I have to say.
But I wonder if they, like, what is considered possession, like full possession, and is there like partial possession? Because I wonder if they, because Amy said she uses words that people know.
True.
So
true.
Maybe when they say possession, they might just mean influenced by but people don't recognize that they relate to a possession.
Yeah.
Is the thought.
You're absolutely right. That could be. Amy, let us know if you're listening.
Oh, please be listening.
Okay, so Nick says that he hears Connor crying and talking or kind of babbling, and he'll go into his room in the middle of the night, and Connor's sitting up in bed talking to the closet. And he's speaking in like a gibberish language that he doesn't recognize, and he's speaking to somebody or something in the closet.
No, I literally stopped breathing right now. I don't like it.
How horrifying, right? And when he asks Connor who he's talking to, Connor says he can't tell him because if he does, it'll kill him. Yeah.
I'm about to start speaking my own gibberish out of fear.
We're coming right out of the gate with
we are.
A good one.
You're coming in hot today.
Okay, so
I need this 12.5 ABV to get through your story.
Right? I know. Maybe I should get something a little stronger.
Here, take one of these. You might need it to get through your story because we're what,
I
5
might need
minutes
the
in
other
right
one.
now? And we're
What?
already, oh my God, I said we're what, 5 minutes into your story
I know.
already? And it's just boom.
I'm literally on the 4th paragraph. Nick tells Steve that he was in the living room and felt 2 large hands on his back, and they pushed him off a step. It's just a small, like a sunken living room kind of a step.
Mhm. Yeah.
And he said he's woken up with bruises, and he has seen a bunch of different shadow people. And I don't know if he really is talking about literal shadow people or just
Mhm.
shapes, but he says sometimes it's a group
Mhm.
of them all together, and sometimes it's like a parade. They're just walking through the house one by one, like a parade.
I wonder if they're doing that, could they be stuck on a loop, like spirits that are on a loop that are continuously repeating an action over and
Like the
over?
residual, like
Yeah, like a residual
yeah, that's like
energy.
a tape recorder just playing it over
Yeah.
and over.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
could be. I did mix this up a little bit. I put a lot of the Steve stuff together and a lot of the Amy stuff together, even though they didn't happen exactly that way as you're
Yeah.
watching it linearly.
That's what I do. That's what I do. So
Yeah, I did still do it back and forth, but I
Yeah.
tried to make it not Amy, Steve, like as it was. So here, Amy begins her walk, and right away she says she sees something hissing and growling. And here's one of them say skinwalker.
no.
So there's a skinwalker here. She explains to Matt that a skinwalker is a deceased Native American who is or was a witch, and it imitates and takes on the forms of living people here.
No. No. No.
Like family members. Yeah, it's
I
dangerous.
wonder if we'll uncover that was built on a Native American burial ground.
Oh, hang on. Pretty much everything was. This whole place belonged to them before we came.
Of course it did.
So she said it could take over people if it wanted to. It is a type of possession.
Ah.
Amy also sees shadow people walking across the room. They come in here at night and just watch. They watch the people. And she said, yeah, and they're not mentally stable. They torture
great.
the living people because it's fun.
Oh, yeah, that's fun. That's top 5 favorite things to do. What to do in Minneapolis.
Yeah, if you're a shadow person. Actually, this is Tucson, so
Good.
What to do in Tucson. They're not here.
Good.
So Steve is talking to the oldest daughter, Natalie. I think she said she was 17.
17, yeah.
And she sees dark apparitions in the hallways. Daughter
Quick
Trinity.
side note.
Sorry.
I can do apparitions versus ghosts if you want to do now. Or do
you want to do that now?
Yeah, since you said the word apparition.
Yeah, let's do it. Megan has this calendar.
I have a like a rip-off day calendar, and it's like hauntings throughout the world. And sometimes it's like a haunting and other times it's a glossary. And so the glossary for Wednesday, the 23rd was apparition versus ghost. And so it says, quote, the words apparition and ghost are sometimes used as synonyms, but the two terms are not entirely equivalent. A ghost is the spirit of a deceased person or animal who has left its body yet remains on earth. An apparition is the term for the visible image of a ghost or spirit. An apparition can take many shapes. For instance, it can look just like a person, an indistinct figure, or a shapeless white blob. A ghost who manifests as a complete human or animal figure is called a full-bodied apparition.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So then daughter Trinity hears voices that sound like her parents. And Steve asked her what they say, and she said they mostly just call her name. Hey, Trinity. Brennan it's the older son, has scratches on his stomach. And he agrees that Connor, the little one, is being picked on. So then he talks to little poor sweet Connor. Steve asks him if he's scared, and he says yes. And he says that he's always been nervous about the closet.
Oh, God.
And he says that if Amy and Steve can't fix it, they're going to have to move. Now we see Amy in Connor's room, and she says they come in and out of the closet. And then she goes, ooh, that's not cool. And then she said they're getting physical with the kids. They're shoving them, nudging them. She said, I think they're really hurting these kids. They're really physically hurting these kids. And she said they like it when the kids cry.
Okay,
And
get
then she
out.
kind of like puts her hands over her head and she goes, ugh, this is upsetting.
Yeah, Amy, it is. I
Yeah.
agree.
So now Steve is speaking with Nick's wife, Desiree. And she's also really worried about Connor. She has experienced male voices, no one she knows, but this one voice kept saying, help me, help me. And it wanted her to go to the police and tell them that he's dead and that his body is in the wash, which is out back of their house. They have it's called a wash. It's called the Pantano wash. And I tried to find like a actual description, description, I guess. Definition is the word I was looking for.
Mhm.
Of what a wash is. And it is a shallow channel that follows the contours of the land and allows water to flow or wash from higher elevations to lower. So it's basically like a river that
Mhm.
is most of the time empty. But if they
Mhm.
have a monsoon
Mhm.
or something like that, then the water goes in there.
Sure.
So he says his body was in the wash. 6 months later, they did find a body in the wash.
No, thank you.
Yeah. It was a male, and Steve is interested to see if there's a connection, and I'll come back to this. Everyone's moods have declined. They're depressed, angry, etc. And none of this was like this before they moved here. Steve, talking to Desiree, Desiree said that her aunt bought the house early in the 1970s.
Oh, that
And
was a bad time. There's lots of serial killers.
oh yeah, oh lots of and alien abductions. I just watched the
Mhm.
Travis Walton story. That first I watched Fire in the Sky, the movie about the guy being
Mhm.
abducted in
Who's
1975.
who's Travis Walton? Why does that name sound familiar?
Well, I don't know, he's the guy that got abducted by aliens. But yeah, and then I watched a documentary on Discovery about it too. It was good. Okay, so the aunt bought the house in the early 1970s and brought her mother, Desiree's grandmother, in from Europe, and they lived together.
Mhm.
The aunt was very maternal and nurturing, and grandma was she called her a spitfire who, quote, could light up a room with her jokes and her stories.
No,
So I think you
not
know what's coming.
not light up a
Yeah.
room.
Grandmother died from a slip and fall in the bathtub, but she was 100. So,
Okay.
she had a good life.
Yeah.
Or she had a long life anyway. I guess I don't know if
Yeah.
it was any good. she sounded cool,
Don't
so I'm sure she's fine.
don't make assumptions about her life.
And Steve says that must have been rough for you and your aunt. And she says that she and her aunt had a falling out because Desiree thinks the aunt had something to do with grandmother's death. Now, Desiree confronted her aunt, who admitted that she, quote, didn't do it on purpose, but she pushed her in the bathtub.
Okay, how do you accidentally push somebody?
I don't know. So Desiree feels that the aunt was really frustrated with being her mom's caretaker, so she's not sure how accidental this was.
Yeah.
And then I have a sound clip. I can't remember what it says though. Anyway, I'll clip
Okay.
that in. The aunt died in the house a few years later, and they never talked about how she died.
Mhm.
So now we go back to Amy. She sees a woman here who is crying a lot. She's in her 50s. The living people would have experiences. The dead lady, is an empath, so she can put her emotions into another person.
Mhm.
And people would feel the weight of the guilt, like a knot in their stomach or a heavy heart. And this crying woman has curly black hair. Her death is recent, within the last 10 years,
Mhm.
and she feels guilt and sadness. And then other people are feeling that because of her. She
Yeah.
feels like she put people in a bad situation, and Amy doesn't see how she died.
Okay.
So now we go back to Desiree, and she's in her room in her bedroom talking about how she's been scratched in the bed. She shows pictures of scratches that she has. And she also showed a picture of something on her foot that looked like a burn. She said it raised up, it welted up like a burn.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. There's
Are they like just like one scratch, or are they 3 scratches when they're showing?
I don't remember. I don't remember it looking like a claw or anything.
Yeah. Okay.
Some of the kids' scratches did look like that. There were multiple lines.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
That's
sure
never
about
good.
hers, but they experienced thumping and tapping on the walls and the window. And Steve had her demonstrate what it sounded like. And on the walls, it sounded like knocking. And on the glass, it was just like a finger tap. And
God,
it went
stop
like
it.
tap, tap, tap.
Yep. Oh
tap, tap,
God.
tap.
Oh God.
Yeah. So Steve said, what do you think it wants? And she said, it wants to hurt us.
Oh my God.
So now Amy's in the bedroom and she says she doesn't like the bed there. And I think she means she doesn't like the position of the bed in the room.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she says there is something outside that's sticking his head and arms through the window and is trying to pull a living person through the window. It wants to take the person. And Matt says, what is it? What is it? And she says, it's a Wendigo.
Ooh.
And she's confused because they're in Arizona. And she said, Wendigos are usually really far north in California.
Yeah.
I mean, in Nova Scotia,
like
Canada.
like in like the woods, aren't they?
I think so. Yeah. So she said, and Matt asked her how to, to explain what a Wendigo is. And she said, it's a supernatural entity that can look different ways, but is usually some sort of a man animal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they like to kill and eat people. Yeah. So now Steve is investigating in town, and it was called by a historian named Bridget Lefevre. She had some info on this Yaqui tribe that lived there. They were very spiritual. They believe the universe is on a lot of different planes. They're very territorial and would fight to the death.
Great.
So here's actually something kind of nice. The American government helped this tribe. They gave them a ton of land in Tucson.
Okay.
The American government did back then and protected it for them.
Nice.
And I think that's
you don't hear every day.
where, I know. Steve said that too. He's like, that's really refreshing to hear that the American government actually did him a solid for once. Not his words. I just made that.
You paraphrased.
Yeah. So then go to Amy, and she says, there's an enormous amount of land that is theirs. There's a lot of Native Americans here, and it is extremely sacred land. They made sure she understood it was an extremely sacred piece of land. The skinwalker was there first, and he still walks through it all. And it's not only at this house, it's a very wide area where this is going on.
Do they have neighbors that this might be happening to as well?
They didn't talk to any of the neighbors, but I mean, yeah, their house is next door.
I mean, if
it's
he's
not
going,
like they're out in the middle of nowhere.
The skinwalker is going to, you would think that other houses would have the same issues.
Yep, you would. So this is okay. So Steve now is looking into the dead body in the wash, right? And he said that a whole bunch of bodies have turned up here.
Super.
Yeah. He meets with, I don't know who this woman, what her role is, but her name is Amy Ehrman.
Okay.
And she gives him info about one case in particular that stood out to her. The guy's name was Carl Martin. They found him in July of 1986, 3,500 feet from the client's house. The body was wrapped in sheets. His head was wrapped in plastic, and the body was badly decomposed. It was summer in Arizona, so
you
can only imagine
out
how that smelled.
Yeah.
But now I'm thinking this can't be the person that Desiree was talking to, because that was in 1986 and she didn't live there in 1986. Now she could have been visiting her aunt, but she never said this happened when she was 10 or whatever, So I think that this is not him, but like Steve said, there's a ton of people. I did a Google search, and there are probably at least 10 stories about bodies in that wash alone. So, yeah.
Are
So
they
Carl,
all like homicides or
oh yeah,
do they not? Oh, yeah.
yeah. I mean, well, there was one that was a girl, a younger girl, and I think they thought that one might be an accident. I didn't dig into them all. I just
Yeah.
like looked at the headlines. But so Carl, the victim, he was on parole. He had been in prison for forging checks,
Mhm.
and he was under police surveillance because he owned an automobile shop that the police believed was a chop shop.
Mhm.
So the police had been watching him, and they noticed that he just wasn't showing up at the chop shop for a while.
How did he go missing if the police were watching him?
Well, they weren't watching that carefully.
I guess not.
So then the wife reported him missing. And then a while later, so wait, this happened he was found in July. March was when they noticed he went missing. And that's when his
Ooh.
wife reported him missing. So then they got a tip that they should speak to a man named Richard Hale. He was a friend and a coworker of the victim. He worked at that chop shop. He was a mechanic. He tells them that Martha, the wife, was having an affair with their roommate, Ronald Gomez.
Martha.
I know. So the wife, Gomez, and Hale, they believed that they were being cheated out of their share of money proceeds from the chop shop.
Mhm.
So on March 12th of 1986, Hale shot Carl Martin while he was sleeping. It did not kill him. Shot him in the head.
Ooh,
Did not kill him.
we got a
So,
Rasputin on our hands.
so then Gomez goes in and empties the gun into Carl. He's still not dead. Hits him in the head with a sledgehammer a few times. He's still not dead. So he strangles him.
Jeez. Oh, this poor
I
man.
know. Can you imagine?
I'd rather not.
So Hale, the one who shot first, that one shot, he cuts a plea agreement and ends up serving 15 years. And then he testifies against the other guys.
Mhm.
Martha got life in prison, but she
Good.
was out on parole in 1998. So she only served 10 years,
12
probably by the time.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gomez had 2 mistrials, and then the prosecutor decided not to go to a third trial.
So
So
he
the guy
didn't
that
get
did all
anything.
of that shit got nothing.
Wow.
Yep. Yay, justice system.
Wow.
And now this is a case, that case was interesting to me. And so I Googled it and I newspapers.com'd it.
Mhm.
And I found out a whole bunch of other stuff, which we will
Okay.
save for another
Yep.
time.
Patreon.
Yep.
Subscribe.
Yeah.
Pay
Subscribe.
for us. It's only $1 a month, you guys. It's $12.
Yeah.
My shitty coffee was 15.
Yeah. It's worth it.
It is. We're hilarious, as you know.
That's what we like to tell ourselves anyway.
And modest too.
Okay, so Amy's outside the building now. She sees a male with a head wound and damage around his neck. And she said he has weird ashy colored skin and he is trapped in that body. I assume that that's Carl,
Yeah.
but I still don't think that's the one that Desiree was talking
No,
to.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. Oh, I just put that in. I just going through my notes. Okay. So this this person that Amy sees, he lets her know that he is not the problem here. It's the monster.
Oh, super.
Yeah.
Yep. Love that.
So yeah. So now Steve's at the History Museum and he discovers a deadly plane crash. There's the pilot of this plane crash used to rent the house. His name was Norman Hurst. He was born in New Jersey. He went to Virginia Tech and the Air Force Base. He was a very good pilot, did a whole bunch of missions. I think I actually wrote more about him. I'll get more to him in a bit. So anyway, there was a plane crash. He died. And so they think that maybe he might be somebody that Amy might see.
Yeah.
The plane crashed into what they called an Indian reservation, but Native American reservation.
Native American.
Hearst died. His trainee was in the plane with him, and the trainee had barely a scratch.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the results of the investigation are classified. So they don't say how or why he was a very good pilot, There's no
Mhm.
reason for him to just lose control. So I don't know what happened, but
Mysterious circumstances.
yep.
Could be like the pilots. I know way too many true crime things or paranormal stuff, but the flight class in Florida that went for a flight, a routine like flight. The instructor took students out
Mhm.
and they left from their Air Force base and they were never seen again.
What?
Yeah.
Never crashed
Uh,
or anything? They just disappeared?
the pilot, the lead pilot got confused. His instruments weren't reading correctly.
Oh.
And they think he was flying. They think that he thought he was flying. Okay, so it's in Florida. They think that he thought he was on the Gulf side of Florida. And so he was flying east. But really, what they think happened is he was closer to the Atlantic side. And so
Okay.
he was flying east away from land.
Oh.
It's
So he probably
really,
crashed in the ocean.
yeah, but they
But that's so funny.
they sent out other search planes that vanished too.
What?
Yeah, it's I'll have to send you
Oh,
the
interesting.
it's Supernatural by Daisy Egan.
Oh,
She covers it.
okay.
It's a really interesting case, and the lead pilot tried to get somebody else to take it because he said he had a bad feeling about it. He said he didn't want to go up.
Oh no.
And this was a very seasoned pilot. And he tried literally the last minute, he tried to get out of it. And his supervisor was like, I don't have that's not a good reason.
Oh, jeez. I bet the
Yeah.
supervisor felt pretty stupid after that.
Yeah. I mean, they lost a lot of people looking for them.
Oh, God. I'll have to look that up. I do
Yeah.
subscribe to Daisy Egan podcast after you
I
mentioned it
love her
that time.
podcast. Yeah.
I have only
But yeah,
listened to one episode, but I really liked it. But I'll go dig
yeah,
around in there and find it.
sorry, I know that was a tangent, but that's just kind
That's
of what
okay.
it reminded me of
Yeah.
like this really seasoned
Yeah.
pilot just, something happens and they crash a plane
Yeah.
and then it's classified. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway,
No,
sorry,
no
but
problem. Okay, so now we're at the sketch, and Amy says that the two people that concerned her the most, the Wendigo, which she explained as a clear energy in a contained form, the one that's coming through the window,
mhm, mhm,
and
mhm.
the woman that was crying, the petite,
Okay.
heavy-set lady with the dark curls.
Yep.
Okay, so now we're at the reveal. I noted that Steve sounds like he has a cold. So Amy brings up first the male in his late 30s to 40s. She was in his body. She felt the impact to his head, felt the brain being injured, and she felt being shot. Said the body was in a very bad state of decomposition. And then Steve talks about Carl Martin, who was
Mhm.
45, shot and left to decompose out in the wash. He tells them the story that the historian told him that we already went over.
Yep.
I looked up the Pantano wash and I found a video showing how the water rushes through there after a
Mhm.
storm, and it's terrifyingly fast.
Is
It's
it
like a
really?
fast river. It looks really scary. I'll
Yeah.
post a link to the video and you can
I
see it.
think
But
people forget how vicious water is
oh my
because we
God, it's
think
so
of like,
powerful.
yeah, I mean, you think of like, lakes or creeks or
Mhm,
rivers, they're slow, but even then you get the undercurrent. And
mhm.
yeah, they can be brutal.
Yep. And the guy in the video is saying that too. It's like people don't realize how bad it is. If they walk out into it, they're gonna get
They're gone.
swept away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're going to die
Yeah.
because it's not just the water on top you got to worry about.
Yeah.
It's the undercurrent.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I can see why people put bodies out there because
Yeah.
probably not
If the
going to
water,
get found.
right.
I mean,
Yeah.
and a lot of them were found. So imagine all the ones that weren't.
That weren't.
Yeah. So Desiree tells her story about the man coming to her, and Amy says she thinks it's him. But again, it can't be Carl.
Mhm.
Unless, like I said, maybe this happened to Desiree in 1986 and she just didn't say that. I got the
Mhm.
impression it was something that happened when her family lived
Right.
there.
When they lived there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like within the last 2 years. That's
Right.
what I would get to.
Right.
Especially because you says 6 months later
Yeah.
they found the body. So I would
Yeah.
assume
It had to have been.
that's who she heard was that person.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know what they
Okay.
say about assumptions.
So then Amy talks about the petite female with the curly hair. She's connected to this house. She's very present here. They cut to Desiree, who just stiffens because she knows that it's
Her
her
aunt.
family member.
Yep.
She said the dead woman feels responsible for what is going on here. Amy says they feel her emotions. Desiree explains that grandma passed away in 2007 and that the aunt did it. And Amy gasps, oh my God. Desiree talks about the
Love
aunt.
her reaction.
I know. Sometimes she's just like her eyes just go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Desiree talks about the aunt and how much she taught her, and they show a picture of her aunt and her grandmother together. They look alike. So they think it's the grandmother that is in the house.
Sounds more like the aunt.
I thought it sounded like the aunt too. Because why would she feel guilty?
Be sad? Yeah.
She didn't kill anybody.
That we know
I think
of.
it's the aunt. Doesn't make any sense for it to be the grandma. Yeah, maybe the grandma's a serial killer. Who knows?
I mean, who knows?
So
maybe she's trying to throw us off that whole light up a room act.
So Steve shows the picture of the two ladies and asks Amy if one of them could be who she saw. And she said, well, I had a sketch done.
Imagine that, Steve.
And Steve whips it out, puts it down.
He says, oh, you're not going to want to see this.
Not this time, no. Not for that one. Okay. I think he might have said it for the next one.
Okay.
Because this is just a sketch of an older lady. This is the sketch and then the picture of the ladies, of the lady that she saw. Oh my God. And they said,
yeah, that's the grandma.
Yeah, you think so?
I think they look like sisters.
They do.
So honest to God.
And that grandma,
like sisters.
The grandma's the one in the red shirt. She was 100 in that picture. It was her birthday. She
looks like she's maybe 70.
I know.
Yeah, I would say that's the grandma. That looks like the grandma to me.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems weird. But anyway.
The ghost looks like a heavy smoker, whatever.
Yes. They said, that's your grandma's nose. That Nick said to Desiree, that's your grandma's nose. And then they both said at the same time, and the smoker's mouth. I'm glad I quit smoking when I did.
Yeah. Oh.
So the other thing she's worried about is the dead people who show themselves as shadow people. So they're not true shadow people. And she says, oh, and so when she says they show themselves as shadow people, Steve and Nick shoot each other knowing glances. She says they're very invasive and intrusive. They're in the bathroom watching.
No, thank you.
In the master bedroom.
Shower in peace, you guys?
You're never alone. I mean, really, you're never alone.
Look at this, you guys. Nobody's wanting to see this naked. So just wait outside until I have my bathrobe on at least.
Yeah. The thought of
just don't think about it.
So she says they're in the bedroom, or no, sorry, in the master bedroom. They stand around the bed and watch. And then Nick talks about seeing the parade of them. And Amy says, yeah, she said that they're not mentally stable.
Great.
Yeah.
What's worse than ghosts? Not mentally stable ghosts.
Right.
Just when you thought it couldn't get any more fun.
So Amy says that in the boys' bedroom, they're coming out of the closet. And Dad says, son of a bitch.
Yeah. Same, Dad. Same.
Yeah, yep. And then he describes how Connor sits up in bed, is talking to somebody in a funny language, and says he can't tell who it is or they'll kill him. And he also gets scratches. And Steve shows photos of the kids' scratches. And Desiree says, I want to kill them. These are my babies.
Yeah.
I can't.
Well, you can't kill them because they're dead.
You're right.
Yeah, I 100% would be the same.
Yep, of course.
Oh.
Amy talks about the natives there, and there are two monsters connected to them, the Skinwalker and the Wendigo. The skinwalker mimics humans, and Nick talks about how he hears his wife or kids calling to him, and then when he goes to find out what they want, they're like, "Well, it wasn't me."
Mhm.
Then she talks about the Wendigo. She doesn't know how it got here, but it has bad intentions. It focuses on the master bedroom and it wants the female. She explains how it wants to pull the woman out of the window, and they cut to Nick, who is just getting more and more pissed by the second.
Yeah.
She mentions the sketch, and when Steve pulls it out of the envelope, he says, "Well, this is just great."
Great, Steve.
And then
Love
they
it.
show, then they show the picture, and Nick, the dad, says, "What the fuck is that?"
I Googled Wendigo images. You guys don't do this at night in your basement. Mm-mm. Do it in the
Oh,
daytime.
that's not the right one. Oops, I sent you the wrong. I didn't
in
send
the
it
sun.
yet.
Do it in the sun. Here comes the sun. Doo, 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 doo. Here comes the sun. And I said,
Okay, here's the picture.
do I want to see this, Amy?
You know what? It's a really creepy idea.
Mhm.
The sketch itself is almost like a kid drew it.
Okay.
You know,
all right.
it's
that
not
makes sense.
like artistic.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's that creepy. It's a
Oh
creepy.
no, that's
It's a creepy idea for sure.
a terrible sketch.
That it's reaching through the window to try and pull this woman out, right?
Yeah.
It's hideous. And
I like how the person drew the curtains.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's not a
The
very
Google
advanced.
images of Wendigo are much more terrifying than this.
Oh, I bet.
I'll screenshot and send them to you. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Then I'll put those in the socials too. So they say they hear banging and noises, and they talk about the scratches and the burns that
Mhm.
Desiree is getting, and Amy gets even more worried.
Mhm.
Amy explains that the Wendigo wants to take her away and kill her and eat her.
Super.
And Nick says, "Over my dead body."
Don't say that, Nick.
And I'm like, hang up there, pal. You don't know what you're dealing with here yet. And then Steve says, "You guys got a lot of shit going on here."
Eve, you are straight to the point. I love it.
Nick is very pissed now, and he says, "Bring it on. I'm going to give this fucker a run for his money."
Okay, here's the thing, people. Don't challenge these things
No, I
because
wouldn't.
they don't have anything to lose. They're
Mm-mm.
dead. You have a family to lose, your life.
Exactly.
You know what I learned from my ex-husband is never challenge somebody to a fight who has less to lose than you do.
Absolutely.
And this thing does not have anything to lose.
That's right.
Don't challenge it.
Nope. Yeah. As he was saying that, I'm like, don't.
PSA,
not
everybody.
Wise. Not wise.
No.
So Amy says she's going to bring in her team to remove the grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
And then she says Desiree, though, also needs to get therapy to get the rest of this depression out of those feelings that she has over her aunt and her grandmother.
Yeah.
Amy's team will also remove the guy in the wash. And then the team will create a barrier around the house to keep the Wendigo and the Skinwalker at bay. We can't get rid of them, but you keep them at bay, along with the men in the closet.
They can't get rid of those guys either?
No.
Really?
I guess not. She says we just want to keep them the fuck out of the house.
I wonder if they're tied to the land.
Maybe. She didn't say they were Native American, but they certainly could have been.
Mm-hmm.
So the update. So I watched this on Discovery Plus the first time, and it stopped right after Amy was doing her speech, where she says, "I think if Desiree and Nick do what I told them to do, blah, blah, blah." It cut right after that and went right to the next episode. And I'm like, whoa, hang on a minute. So
back it up there, Discovery Plus.
Right. So I rewound and tried again. Nope, cut it off again. So I went to Hulu and then I saw the update. So it's 3 weeks later and it's a video update and it's Nick. And he says the activity is continuing because they're still waiting for Amy's team. But it was only 3 weeks. So they could still have come. So I looked up the house. I found the house on Zillow. And it was last sold in June of 2017. Now this aired in 2020.
So that's probably them.
That was them buying the house, I'm sure.
Yep.
Because the time would have evened out, right?
Yep.
This episode, so it would track with how long they have lived there. I did a property search and found out that they do still own the property. Their name
Okay,
is on the
so
property. So hopefully this means that they took Amy's advice and all is good now.
yeah,
But, we can never really know that.
right.
So,
Discovery Plus, if you're hearing this, please do updates. Thank you. Love Amy
yes,
and Megan.
please. Travel Channel, please do updates. So the true crime stuff for patrons, I'm just going to gloss over what I'm planning to do for that. The Carl Martin murder.
Mhm.
This, I spent like a half of yesterday researching this. It was quite a doozy. There was actually a fourth guy that was charged in this murder too, but I believe it was determined that he only helped move the body, so he ended up not going to prison. But I'll get that all ready. We can record that and we'll put that up. I could not find anything about the grandmother because I don't know her last name
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
it's Desiree's grandmother.
Yeah,
I don't know
and
that
yeah.
family's name. The plane crash, I do have something about the plane crash. I'm just going to put it up on Patreon. It's not that big of a deal,
Okay.
but there's something about that. But while I was searching the family, I found an old article from 2014 or 16. And it was all about their daughter Trinity, who they never mentioned this in the episode, but she was born with a bad heart.
Mhm.
And she had to have heart surgery like her second day of life, like
Wow.
real
Yeah.
early.
Yeah.
And so she was having heart surgeries all her life. And the story was about a little friend of hers at school who was trying to raise money for her heart transplant.
Oh,
And he did that by selling little bags of his grandmother's caramel corn. Isn't
what
that
a
cute?
sweet little boy.
And he raised a ton of money. We had like $17,000 or something.
Damn, that's some good
Not
caramel.
just on caramel corn.
I
I
know.
it got on the news and then people gave their money.
Yeah.
But I thought that was really sweet.
They should get married. Just saying.
Yeah, I know.
How meet cute is that?
Right.
Hallmark.
And this was, that story
Yeah.
was, she was 8 in that story
Yeah.
and she's 13 in this. So, and I couldn't find anything about anybody in this family after
Mhm.
those stories. So I assume everything's
Yeah.
good with them.
One would hope.
Yeah. They were a sweet family.
Yeah. Sounds like it. I sent you pictures of the Wendigo.
Okay.
And
God.
it was
Yeesh.
yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like it's got like deer antlers on top of its head.
Yep.
Kind of like a wolf skull. Like almost like an elongated canine snout.
Yeah. Yeah.
Google it. I don't know. I can't.
Skinny waist and big shoulders, like a big chest.
Long arms that end in super long fingers and claws.
Oh, that's one of them is from a Stephen King wiki.
I saw that. Yeah.
I wonder what that is. Megan, you need to charge your phone.
I know I do. 17%.
It always makes me anxious when I see people's phones when they send me a picture of their screenshot or whatever. And I'm like, you have to charge your phone. Because I charge mine when it's at about 85%. That's when I start getting nervous. I know. That's terrible.
Well, you know what? You do you. I'm not judging you. This is a judge-free zone. Judge-free. Okay, so mine has a trigger warning.
Okay.
In the history, there is infant death, and it's not great. Not that infant death is ever like yay, but it's not great. So mine is called The Thing. Doesn't that sound delightful? And it aired in 2020. Let me pull up the date because I don't quite remember.
Yours was 2021. I show October 30, 2021.
Oh yeah, October 30th, 2021. That's in our birthday month.
Yay.
Okay. So it takes place in Oxnard, California. Oxnard. I'm sorry, people, that I just butchered your name. I didn't mean to. So Kelly is the homeowner and she called Steve. And she thinks that whatever is in the house killed her husband and her father. The father died. He was talking, laughing, happy. She said the way we are right now. He got a diagnosis of cancer. He went upstairs one evening, went to sleep, and then just didn't wake up.
Was he? Was he like old?
He was older. Yeah. Okay. I don't think they cover how old he was.
Okay.
And then her late husband, she found him dead in the bedroom at 45 of a drug overdose.
Oof.
And he had been clean, she said, for a while and then started using. And Steve opens up that he lost a brother to an overdose as well. He found him. And so
Ugh.
to Kelly and Steve, I just can't imagine what it would be like to find a loved one that way. So my heart goes out to anybody that's had to deal with that.
Yep.
And Kelly thinks that the paranormal activity is what caused him to start using again. And so Steve is like, well, why don't you just leave? And she said, well, my father built this house. She said, I was born and raised in this house. She left. She came back 8 years ago. She lives there with her daughter, Sarah, who's 15, her mother, who's 71, and herself. So there's a bed set up in the living room. And so, Steve talks about that. Like, what's the story with that? And she said, well, her mother had a stroke 8 years ago. She's paralyzed. She can't walk. And she said her mind isn't as sharp as she used to be.
Ugh.
And she said the past 2 weeks, her mother has said to her, so Kelly's mother has said to Kelly that she sees Kelly's father and her mother's father, and they've come to visit her. And she said, and they said everything is going to be okay to her. And so Kelly thinks that means her mother is not long for this world. And Steve says, what do you think is here? And Kelly said, I think there's a demon here.
Ooh.
Yeah, throwing that D word around. So we're in the main bedroom now. That's where Kelly's father passed away, she said, about a year ago. And Steve says, well, do you think your father's here? And she said, no. She said, I don't think he's here. She said, I'm glad. She said, I think he's where he needs to be. And she said, after her dad had died, Kelly heard his voice saying, I'm cold, I'm cold. And he said, that's what he told her before he was dying. And she said, and Steve said, well, you're sure it's him? Sorry. And she said that she's confident that it's his voice, but she said it wasn't him. And she said that's when she knew that this thing was evil, when it was impersonating, people.
Oh, another mimic.
Yep. And she said she sees shadow peoples walking through the house. Shadow figures, not peoples. Lord. 12 and a half. Here's new drinking game. Whenever you hear us say shadow figure or shadow person, take a swig.
Yeah.
So she said she was sleeping in Sarah's room. Sarah's her daughter, who's 15. And she woke up to a large shadow standing over her, touching her on the head, pushing her hair behind her ears.
Oh my God.
Fuck.
Seriously.
No. What? Okay. She said she has dreams about a demon thing. She says this demon crawls on all fours. His face is very disfigured. And she said he wants to hurt her physically, mentally, emotionally, all encompassing. So then Steve interviews Jennifer, who's Kelly's older daughter. Kelly or Jennifer does not live there anymore. And Steve is like, what do you make of this with your mom? You think she's overreacting? She goes, no, she's not overreacting at all. She's worried that something is going to happen to her. She wants her to leave. She said there's something here that makes people angry and makes people fight. And she said she would fight with her husband all the time. She said that's what caused her to move away. So in the room they were in now was like a living room. And she said she was comforting her son, who was 5 to 6 months old, because he was sick and he wasn't feeling well. And she said all of a sudden she got punched right in the middle of her back.
Oh.
Steve said, you realize how dangerous that is to be punched with a newborn?
She was
No,
like,
Steve.
I know it, but I didn't do it on purpose.
Yeah, I had no idea. I thought it was totally okay. So then she said another time, Jennifer, again, Kelly's older daughter who doesn't live there, was washing bottles in the kitchen. And she looked up, and above the sink, there's a window that you can see. Obviously, a window you can see outside. There's a window. And in the reflection of the window, she saw a lady in a vintage nightgown. And so later on, her and her mom were looking through pictures and family photos, and she saw a picture of her, and it was her mom's grandma.
Okay.
So then we moved to Sarah and Steve. Sarah's the 15-year-old, and Steve is just the best with her. Like, Steve, and he's so good with kids, like, and with everybody. Like, if they're he just has such a calming demeanor about him.
Yeah.
Even though being this big, burly New York, Brooklyn cop, he's just super, calming.
I'm sure he's had to deal with a lot of victims, in his job.
Being a homicide detective. Yeah. So Steve and Sarah are talking, and he said, do you want to move? And she said, well, I wouldn't mind moving. If we had to move, I wouldn't mind it. And she said she has horrible nightmares. And he's like, well, what's going on? And she says she's being held down and she can't move in these dreams. She's being choked.
Ugh.
She said being suffocated is a theme. And she said she always wakes up scared. She said she was in bed one night and something came in the room, walked around to the other side of the bed, got in with her and put its arm around her. And
Oh,
I
good
put a
Lord.
clip of that in at 14:29 is where a clip starts.
Okay.
And Steve goes, well, could it have been a dream? And she said, no, I was not dreaming. And later on, you hear I believe it's in the reveal that Kelly says, Sarah came down to breakfast the next day and asked if she got in bed with her because she felt something put its arm around her.
Oh,
Goodbye,
God.
goodbye. I've literally slept with a Bible before because I've been so scared. I've put Bibles under my pillow because can't hurt. So now we're doing Steve's investigation. This is super interesting. So he meets with Connie Anderson, who is a local author, and they talk about the history of a cemetery. So I think across from the house, there's a cemetery. And it was established in 1898, and it was once a very lush, gorgeous cemetery, but it's since fallen into disrepair, and it just does not, like, headstones are all over the place, and it's just not.
So vandalized and stuff?
Yep, it's been vandalized. The last burial was in 1949, and so since then, people have stolen headstones, and there's also been reports of weird rituals.
Oh, I was going to say, you just know people are in there with their fucking Ouija boards.
Of course they are. Don't fucking do the Ouija boards. So the cemetery and it sounds like the town was established by three prominent people. The Winfield Saviors, which is a savior, the family. It's a very prominent family within this town. Like, there's street signs named after them. Mm-hmm. Thomas Bard, who's a former senator, also has some street names now.
Like we have Pillsbury and
yep.
all those.
Yep. And then Achilles Levy. So these three people or three families are kind of who started it. Originally, there was 360 people buried in the cemetery, but currently there's only about 50 or 60. So here's an interesting factoid. In 1908, they separated the cemetery. So they took 140 Japanese people were buried in one area. Mexican Americans were buried in another area along a tree line. They didn't want any white people buried with the other races. Like, they want it very different. Segregation. Yep. And then that's when we find out, the last person was buried there in 49, and that's when all the vandalism comes. Mm-hmm. And just leave the dead alone, you guys.
I know. No good comes of that ever.
No. Let them rest. They deserve to rest. So then we meet with Chris Conti, who's a local teacher, and he talks about the Saviors. And they're a very prominent family, like I said, throughout the family and throughout the city. So they've been there for over 100 years. The matriarch of the family, her name was Charlotte, and she stands out. She came from Massachusetts east. Remember, we're in California. So she came via Iowa in the 1880s. She married Charles Saviors in 1888 with a shotgun wedding. Scandalous.
Oh, no.
Oh, a shotgun wedding. I don't know why I went south there. So they had a total of 4 kids, but Jack is the only member buried in the cemetery. He's their grandson. He's their only son of Charlotte's son Walter and his wife. So tragedy struck poor little Jack. So he was at his grandparents playing around a wagon. A bunch of hay fell off, bales of hay fell off, crushed his skull and broke his arm. That was in 1918. He didn't die right away.
I was going to say, I remember this one.
Yep, he didn't die. He died a week later. He died February 1st of 1918.
I remember that part.
Yeah. So
poor kid.
Here's where we get the trigger warning for infant death. So if you don't want to hear infant death, you might want to skip ahead.
We didn't just hear that.
No, that was not the infant death.
Oh, okay.
That was just 4-year-old death.
Oh.
So then we meet with Detective Mike Marostica. There was a brutal triple murder down the road from Kelly's house. And he says the murder was, what's murder always about? Revenge and money. So they were on what's called the Oxnard family ranch, and it was owned by Peter Fuhrer, his wife Bertha, and Virginia, their 10-month-old daughter. The ranch was very, very successful, and Peter had hired a number of local ranch hands, including Peter, I think his name was Fortune. He was one of the ranch hands that they hired. Unfortunately, he was not a good ranch hand, and so they fired him. So the details on this are a little murky as to how he came about this, but what happened is he cashed a $250 check in Peter's name. And he was super nervous about getting caught and going to jail. So what he did was he went back to the ranch, finds Peter in the barn, hit him with a metal pipe and killed him, hit him over the head. Then he was like, oh, there's still some loose ends. So he went to find Bertha, killed her with the same metal pipe. She was holding the baby. You know where we're going with this. I'm not going to say it. So then he does everything. And then he eventually moves the family to one room and lights the house on fire to try to, hide the evidence.
Cover his tracks.
Sheriff brought him in. He admits the guilt, brought to trial, found guilty, sentenced to death, and was killed in like 2 months. Like they were not fucking around.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
You did it, you did. So that's Steve's case, or Steve's portion. Now we move on to Amy's arrival. A soundbite at 2:20 when she arrived. She says, I don't like it. This is not a good area. And then at 2:40, she just goes bad. So then we go into, I think it was Kelly's mom's bedroom. So the living room where she is, and Amy feels drained. She said there's a little woman living there with thin gray white hair. And she says there's no energy. She's frail. She's confused. Amy said she can't tell if she's alive or dead. But she said if she's alive, she's dying. She's not long for the mortal coil.
That is.
Yeah. She's heavy with confusion. She said there's lots of nausea associated with her. Feels something potentially with her heart. And she said living would get sick in that room. And then she says she senses an older male who died from what she feels like was a heart attack. He owned it with his family, maybe the late 90s, 2000s, and he's frustrated. He wants out. He likes to be outside. And he's feeling like he's being pushed out or been pushed out. Then she also sees a dying woman who's looking in the mirror and talking to herself. And she opened a gateway. And then she said she feels something that she calls the thing. And she said it looks.
The old woman opened the gateway by talking in the mirror?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
And she said the thing looks burned. And she said it kept trying to absorb her energy. She said she thinks it can come in and out of the mirror. The living people, their energies would be sucked. And there's dead people in the mirror as well, taking their energy. And she said the scary thing is it's not just their energy. They're taking their personalities, their memories, etc. It's very negative, she said, and very, very bad. Wow. Yeah. So she said, then she goes into Sarah's room. And she said this person would see people coming out of the closet. She said there's a bunch of people that come out of the closet and just stand around the bed. She said this person is a medium and they've opened up a vortex. And so all of these dead people are coming to this person, to her, to.
And the person doesn't know she's a medium.
Doesn't know she's a medium. So she said the thing is here as well. And she said it's kind of morphed. And it's changed shape to be more down to size, like scaled down. She says it has long hands. It's super skinny. And again, she says it's dangerous to the living because it can, and it is taking pieces of them and taking their memories.
Oh, God.
So then she said, we're in the cemetery now. And she says she sees kind of a huge hole in the cemetery and she had to fight to keep herself from being sucked into the hole. So she sees, or she feels a woman presence. And she said she came from back east. She said she got that she slept her way here. And so Amy thinks that she was a hooker, her words, not mine.
Mhm.
And she said she got that 1918 was a very important year for her. She said she heard something horrible went on that year. She said she heard a man barking. She's really scared. Heard something about a fire, horrible pain in her neck, horrible pain in her jaw, in her side. So maybe from getting hit with a metal pipe, throwing that away. So then we go to the reveal. And so Kelly and Jennifer are there. So Kelly is the homeowner. Jennifer's her older daughter who's moved out. And here's the first episode I saw where Amy was on the TV. So she wasn't in the room with them. And
Oh, she was on the monitor?
She was on the
Yeah.
monitor. Yep. And Amy said this was a very active walk. She said she talked about the deceased woman. She said she had an Eastern accent. She said she slept her way here, making her think that she was potentially a sex worker. She said she mentioned the year 1918 a few times. The living may see her as a shadow. And Amy said she has a dark side. If she doesn't get her way, she lashes out to people. So then Steve and Kelly kind of talk a little bit, and Kelly says that she's seen a shadow woman standing over while she's sleeping. The bed would move and shake. And then Steve kind of talks about Charlotte, who came, married the Savior's family, slept her way here, could mean a shotgun wedding. So then they're talking about the man that they feel in the living room. So the man that she said died suddenly from a heart attack, he's upset and frustrated. And so she said she had a sketch done of this person, but she said they show it and it looks exactly like her brother Danny, who passed away at the age of 55 in 2008, and he's still there. So he's, he hasn't moved on yet.
So the picture is just a guy who looks to be, I don't know, 50 maybe.
Yeah.
And he's got real rosy cheekbone, not rosy, I shouldn't say it's black and white, but like real prominent cheekbones, a mustache. Only he's balding, so he's only got the hair on the sides.
Yep.
And then he's wearing like a tank top that looks like it might be plaid or something. Checkered.
And yep.
Okay. And that's her brother.
That's her brother Danny. Yep.
Okay.
So then she talks about the older female who's not deceased, but maybe dying. And she said there's something going on with the heart. And so that's when Kelly says that her mother went in for open heart surgery, and that's when she suffered her stroke. Yeah.
1-2 punch. Jesus.
Yeah. So we talk about, she said she sees a younger woman looking into a mirror with a candle, and she inadvertently opened a doorway through the mirror.
I wish she'd sketch that.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. Never sketches the good stuff. Just kidding, she does. So she said quite a few dead people hang out in the mirrors, and she said it's very concerning. She said they draw energy in. They draw, they're stealing energy. And she said, and that's what makes them negative. And she said, you may see people in the mirrors. You may catch movement out of the corner of your eye. You may see a reflection. And that's when Jennifer said she saw the reflection in the window of her great-grandmother.
The kitchen, yeah.
So then she starts talking about the thing, and she calls it the thing. And then Kelly said, that's interesting because that's exactly what I call it too, is the thing. And she said it was never alive. She said its skin was very burned, and she said it's not good. It's very, very bad. And she said it takes energy. And that's when Kelly says, I'm lethargic. I'm tired. I'm just drained all the time. And Amy said it's, it can pick pieces of your personality, pick your memories out. And Amy asks if anybody in the house is having memory problems. And then Jennifer and Kelly look at each other, and Steve's like, share with the class. And Jennifer says that Kelly is totally different. She's not herself. She gets very mad very easily. It's just not like her. So then she talks about Sarah's room, and she said the person in that room has abilities. She said there's another vortex in the closet. Because of her abilities, the dead are coming from the closet, and they're surrounding the bed. And it's dead people who want help. And so the thing, she said, got much smaller, and she said was crawling in the bed with them. And she does have a sketch done of that. And it's a girl in a bed, and you can see a bunch of people around the bed.
Kind of dark figures.
Dark figures.
Or in dark clothing anyway.
And then you see something with very long arms, long, skinny fingernails, kind of almost like an alien type head, were very round, kind of a longer face, crawling into bed with this person that's sleeping.
Ugh,
No,
that's a
thank
creepy
you.
picture.
It's so creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you said, when you talked about your story about Amy wanting things to be done repeatedly throughout the year, because she wanted that done here too. So she said you can stay, but there are a lot of things that need to be done first. She said Amy will bring in a group of sensitive and mediums to move Danny, her brother, comfortably. She said he's ready to go. He wants to go.
Good. Yeah.
She did say the house did not have anything to do with her father and her husband's death, because they did ask that.
Yeah.
She said you need to close the large vortex. You need to shut it, sever it, seal it, and also close the vortex in Sarah's room. They both need to be shut. To keep the thing out, you need to buy a large bag of salt and put it around the barrier of her property. She said the shadow woman will be pushed out. She said, I want the barrier redone every 2 weeks for a year.
Can you imagine anybody actually doing that? Don't you think you'd be like, it's fine. I haven't seen anything in a while. It's fine.
I don't know. Being me, I probably would do it for the rest of my life.
I think I would get lazy.
So the update is Kelly's waiting for the team to arrive and the activity continues. Oof.
Wow.
Those sketches were creepy.
Yep. They are creepy. I'll make sure those are on the socials.
And I did find a little bit of information sorry, about the killing. And we can do that in a Patreon episode, but I did find a little bit more information on it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So, well, that's all, folks.
I can't do the Porky Pig impression. My dad used to do that.
Oh, it did. Yeah.
He was really good at it. Do you have Apple TV? I started watching a show that is like, I'm kind of obsessed with it now.
What is it?
It's called Severance, and it stars Adam Scott.
Oh, I do like him.
I do too. Anyway, it's a story about a community that has a company, like the city, big company, like ours would be 3M,
right?
It's a company like that.
Mills.
Yeah. And it's people that work there and work in a certain department there. They have something done to their brain where when they're at work, they don't know who they are when they're not at work. And so they come in and they work, and they're their work person, they're their work self.
Yeah.
And then when they go home, they are their home self. And their home doesn't know anything about what they do at work, because it's supposedly highly classified and all this. So they have basically two personalities, their work self and their home self.
Really?
And I'd seen a trailer for it, and I was barely paying attention. I'm sure I was playing on my phone or something.
Right.
But I was like, ooh, Adam Scott, ooh, blah, blah, like good people in it.
Yeah.
And Patricia Arquette is in it.
Ooh, yeah.
And so we were like, oh yeah, we should watch that. And then one night we decided we were going to watch it. And as soon as we put it on, I was like, oh my God, I had this dream last night. Oh. So like a couple weeks after I'd seen the trailer, maybe a week after I'd seen the trailer, I had a dream that I was at this weird workplace and Ben Stiller was there. Ben Stiller's the director of this show.
Oh my God.
And so I'm like, why am I dreaming about a show I haven't seen yet? And so when the show started, I was like, this is really freaky. Because like, I feel like I just dreamed this show.
Yeah.
And then watched the episode. It was amazing. It's really good. Then either that night or the next night, I had another dream about a workplace, and in my head, it was the same workplace I dreamed about before, but
Yeah.
I had pulled aspects from the show into
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically, I am like dreaming this show as I'm watching it.
That's really interesting. At
It
least it's
is.
not a scary show.
It's really trippy, but
That would be.
it's a very
Because
bizarre
I'm
show.
wondering, because then I'm sure you're watching the show going like, did I dream this or was
Yeah.
this in the show?
Yeah. Yeah. It is
Yeah.
really strange. But I'm really liking it. We just watched an episode tonight.
Nice.
It's really good.
I'm really into Downton Abbey.
Oh, I did love that when it was on, when it was first on.
Yeah, but
That's a
it's
good one.
every episode is so long.
Eh,
They're like an hour and 20 minutes. I'm
Yeah.
like, who's got time to binge
No.
the show?
I know. It's just a long show. Speaking of long shows, we should probably wrap it up.
Uh-huh.
It's 12
Yeah.
minutes after my bedtime.
Uh-huh. It's like an hour
Okay,
after mine.
well,
Thank you for joining us for another episode of The Activity Continues. We hope you had fun, and please feel free to drop us a note at theactivitycontinues@gmail.com or PM us on all of our socials. We love to hear from you. What Dead Files episode should we cover next?
or you can send us your paranormal stories and we'll read them on the show. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time when
The activity continues.
All right.
All right.
Talk to you
Bye.
soon. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Activity Continues podcast. We really appreciate you giving us your ears for a bit. Please reach out if you have a suggestion for which episode of the Dead Files we should cover next, or if you have a spooky story you'd like us to share on the show. We can be reached at theactivitycontinues@gmail.com or through our website or any of our socials. Links are all in the description of the show. Please feel free to drop us a note and say hi. And join us next time when the activity continues. The Activity Continues is produced by me, Amy, at Collected Sounds Media, and is part of the independent Collected Sounds podcast network. We are also proud members of the Boo Pod network of super cool podcasts.
Nailed it.